I can think of a few companies that sent out emails that basically said to their developers, if you're not using AI, you're going to get fired. Does it matter that somebody is using AI all day if all they're doing is creating unicorn GIFs? Probably not.
No.
But we measure use of AI. So does that count? I don't think AI is going to replace you, but you will be replaced by people who are using AI.
VOX wins.
Hi, everyone. It's Kate from VOX Wins, and I am here with a dear friend of mine, Jen Peck. She has quite a title, and I don't want to screw this up, so I've written it down just to make sure that I nod to how great she is and how much I admire her expertise. She is the Senior Director of Engineering. That means she's the head of developer experience and tools at Redfin. She and I have a long history together. We both have worked the shoe sales floor at Nordstrom and have a great history together. And I've come to truly admire all of her experience. And I've really brought her here today to join our community to talk about AI in the real world. And that's about adoption, anxiety, and measuring what matters. But before we get into that, Jen, can you tell us what you really do?
Yeah. Well, thank you for that intro. I'm very flattered. We go way back from the Nordstrom shoe department days. But today, my job is to build tools with my team that work for our engineers. So every time an engineer writes code that goes onto a website that does a thing, they need a way to test it. They need a way to save it. They need a way to basically deploy it out into the world safely. And so my team develops all of those tools for engineers. And that does include AI now. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk today.
I'm excited too, because I love AI. And just when we think we know everything, we meet someone like you who teaches us another new thing. For people who aren't technical, you used some terms before with me that I didn't quite understand.
Yeah.
Developer platform and SRE.
Yeah, so developer platform is kind of what I was talking about. When you write code, you need somewhere to put that code, to save it, to test it, to make sure it works with all the other things that are already in what we call production, which is what you see as a user when you're on a website or when you're using a computer program. That's production, essentially. So any place to basically deliver the code that you need to do that does the thing that the person is using is basically what it is. And then when we talk about site reliability engineering, which is what SRE stands for, site reliability engineering is a practice of engineering that is really focused on making sure that what we do and what we create is stable so that it doesn't interrupt customers. So it might sound like this technical nerd thing, which it definitely is. But that's why it's important, is it really impacts the end user and people that are, working in the field. So super important engineering practice.
So in the world of AI, what does AI mean to your team in this world of, is tooling the right word?
Yeah. I think about AI like any other developer tool. A lot of the tools that we use are really just there to make us more efficient. And there's certainly a new stigma that has been added to it, and we can talk more about that later. But I really see it as any sort of developer tool and something that makes us stronger as an industry. So lots of things to compare it to there.
Okay, the pattern. Every innovation follows the same cycle. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so when I think about the technical innovations that we've had just in my career context, but we could even go back further than that and say when the computer was invented, there's this pattern that I've seen, which is really this rush of adoption of oh my God, it's going to save the world. And, there's so much hype around it and we have to use it and everyone has to use it. And if you don't, you're basically trash, and there's this period of pressure that builds up. And that's usually followed by a period of a reality check of how can we actually use this thing? It's actually not going to solve cancer. It's not going to solve all of our problems. And then there's a little bit of a pullback. And then there's sort of this balanced place that we get to where the hype and the reality kind of come to pass.
Do you feel like AI is approaching or living in that pullback moment right now?
Yeah, I think it kind of depends where and when people adopted AI. And when I say people, I mainly mean companies, actually. So you have a lot of companies that have been very committed to AI from the get-go. I can think of a few companies that sent out emails that basically said to their developers, if you're not using AI, you're going to get fired, which didn't super go well.
No.
So those places probably had that like reality check and pullback sooner, and places that have been a little bit more skeptical are probably in that like building up to that high pressure. So it kind of depends when you have adopted things and sort of what you've used it for. I'd say like as an industry, we're probably in a reality check moment where we're trying to figure out like what generative AI in particular is good to use for. So generative AI is a term that I use when talking about AI that makes code for you. So it actually does the job that an engineer would do.
So if AI is the new cloud moment, what should leaders expect next?
Yeah, I think the reality check is followed by the pullback. And then that leads to sort of where we go as a whole industry. I think people are coming to terms with the reality of like having AI sort of run wild in your sphere, depending on what you do. So for an engineering, that means like an AI tool is writing all of your code for you. That reality check is basically like, okay, now we have all this code being written and how do we manage it? And depending on where you are in the cycle, the reality check will be different.
I like that you talked about the curve before, and the words that you used were rush, correction, or balance. Where are you seeing that most? Or are you just adopting the curve always as you're assessing with your team?
I've seen this happen a few times, like I said, with cloud before. So when we moved from sort of a on-premise server, which is literally a machine that sits in an office building that somebody is writing code and putting onto that computer, moving to the cloud where your servers are in the cloud, which essentially means you're virtually moving your information to that machine. That is still a machine. It still sits somewhere. It's just not in your office. That innovation took, I'd say, the industry by storm in the same way AI is, where there was a lot of fear around it. But at first there was this rush of like, put everything in the cloud. Put everything in the cloud. Oh my God, we got to do it. And people didn't really understand the implications of putting everything in the cloud. Like you have to make sure it's secure. You have to make sure that you understand how to access it. You have to make sure you're managing the finances of it. It's not free. So a lot of those things kind of came later after there was this rush to adopt it. It is just very similar where we're saying like, okay, yeah, we should adopt this thing, but let's find out more about it and figure out how to manage it well.
I love that when we were having tacos the other night, you used that same parallel and it made a lot of sense to me, especially who isn't in it like you are. So thank you. AI makes dev faster, but can make debugging slower. So with that idea, Jen, can you tell me more about AI and how it's really impacting your team and the work?
So I think with every innovation, you basically just move where the bottleneck is. You move where the traffic jam is. So in this case, people are writing things faster. Engineers are writing code faster, they're delivering things faster, but you still need to go through your standard set of like tests to make sure you're not breaking anything that's already in existence. I know we all have had that moment of like, you develop something new, you break something old. That is very common. And so you have to make sure that you're going through that set of tests and making sure you're applying your logic to make sure everything is safe. So now you just have a bunch of changes built up that need to be tested. When that happens, you also have this risk of reliability failure, if you will, because you have a lot of changes at one time going out. And anytime you introduce change, that is a risk. So what we do in site reliability engineering is make sure that we have frameworks and standards so that when a change goes out, it's safe. But when you have 100 of those versus maybe, a year ago, you might have had 10, doing that 100 times and as quickly is just harder. And there are humans in the mix. So that's what we talk about where we're talking about speed and fragility. You've got to really make sure that you have a process to support that code going out.
So do you feel that that's a majority of your job right now, or setting those guardrails so that pace can continue?
Yeah, it is probably evaluating where all the new bottlenecks are, because there's not just one, there's probably like 10 and trying to figure out how you solve for all of those.
I worked with a great leader and he always said, all right, when we launch, we know the known, but we don't know the unknown. So we're going to have to, plan for that. And I always appreciated that about him. because I think great teams really work with the known and the unknown really well. It sounds like you're doing that with your team right now.
Yeah, we try. I mean, you said, there's a set of risks anytime you make a change. So you have to just know that you're going into that and then have a process so that you can have a playbook every time you do the same thing. You figure it out and you perfect it. If there is something that goes wrong.
And tell me about, as you're using AI to code, the maintenance tax that's associated with that.
Yeah. So when you're writing your own code, and anyone who's written code will, I think, empathize with this, you're doing logic in your head. You're figuring out, okay, if that goes here, then this goes there, and you're thinking out loud. And that helps you really understand what the computer is actually doing for each line of code. But when someone else, the AI tool, is writing that code for you, you don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. And so the maintenance really comes from, like, you actually now have a bunch of code that you aren't familiar with. So if something does go wrong, you don't know where to look. Versus if you're writing your own, you know where to look. And so the tax is really just understanding that code. So if you deliver 5,000 lines of code in 10 minutes, great, good for you. But if you don't understand how to fix it, if something goes wrong, you have a lot of time that you're going to be spending fixing that.
Interesting, because in other verticals and parallels that we have with using AI in different areas of companies, I find that there's this huge push to continue to use it really fast. But the tax, I love the maintenance tax and how you've described that, because I think that presents a whole other problem, in a whole other area of the business that maybe we didn't consider going into it.
Yeah, I think really where AI shines is paired with a human. The way that I talk about it with engineers is that it's sort of like hiring the most junior developer ever. So you can give them tasks, but they don't know. They haven't been here. They don't know how we do things. They don't know what risks we already have. They don't understand our business well. So you really have to just review every single thing they do.
I like this quote from when we spoke. AI writes, humans stay responsible.
If you're what we would call pair programming with an AI tool, that is still your code. So you're still responsible for that code. Maybe not all companies have thought about it that way, which is where you get into trouble, because then you don't know who to ask about, hey, what were you thinking when you did this? So,
the industry that I'm, know the most about is CX, and hallucinating happens. The question is, how far do we want to go? We know there's a risk with hallucinating. Do we want it to happen 0.1% of the time? Are we okay with that? And I think you have to be, right, with an AI tool.
I think you have to be. And also, the more that you use it, I think as an industry, the theory is the more that we all use it, the less it will hallucinate. The more that we can correct it, the less it will hallucinate. It is very responsive in general to feedback. And I would tell people to be very direct. You don't need to be mean, but be very direct. So I was doing something the other day where I really wanted to go read a book somewhere at a coffee shop with a comfy couch and a fireplace. And so I asked Claude to help me find some place in Seattle to do that. And it served me up a list of 5 places, and 3 of them were permanently closed. And I just said, no, go back. You gave me a list of 3 that were permanently closed. I need you to double check that these are still open.
Thank you for what a great example too. So I wrote some questions down here. Where do humans become more essential once AI is in the loop?
I mean, I think there's definitely testing and governance probably is what I would say, which, I think there's a few different places that you have governance. So you have security teams that are making sure that each product that you use, has been well vetted, and that company is not using your data to train their AI tool, which is something that, you want to look out for. So I'd say governance as a whole in terms of security and legal risk. And then I also think that you still need really senior developers to double check what the tool is creating for you. You still need to logic about what a feature should and should not have. I think there's a lot of fear around, AI replacing engineers. And I always tell people, I don't think AI is going to replace you, but you will be replaced by people who are using AI.
Yeah, great point. What great advice. I'm inspired talking to you. I want to go do this now. No, I don't.
Anyone can. You can totally vibe code. You can totally do it. It's very easy.
I'm talking out loud to myself, and you've described that as right. So That's a
There are
good
a
one.
lot of tools that I would totally encourage. I think one of the things I tell people is like, if it sounds scary, you should do it. And
Mhm.
that's just like life advice, that if that's the only reason, you should do it. So AI is no different. There are a lot of tools that you could go out and use on your own. Claude is my favorite platform for just, it's by Anthropic, by my favorite tool for just like basically a replacement of Google, if you will. Keep in mind that everything you ask AI is like taking resources, and it's like there's an environmental impact. So like maybe don't always be searching for coffee shops. But Claude is a good tool. And then as far as like if you wanted to vibe code, which basically means you'd tell this tool what you wanted it to build and it would go build it for you. There are a number of tools out there that you could just search for the words vibe coding and some would come up. I really like Replit, Replit. And yeah, you can create all sorts of fun things.
Okay, so I've heard you talk, and a lot of my friends in the industry talk about AI and the fear of AI taking over their job and the anxiety around that. I love how you reframed that messaging about the cloud, and really drawing a parallel there. And you said something that I loved too. People fear replacement instead of identifying where they uniquely add value and where AI is weak. And you said you're not less needed, you're differently needed. And I
Yeah.
love that. And you sort of shared that too about, have no fear. And if it makes you a little nervous, go do it. What did the cloud era teach you about job displacement narratives? I feel like we've already answered this, Jen.
No, actually, this is a story I would tell that I haven't told. So many years ago, when the cloud was the new, there were entire teams at every company that would manage something that were either called mainframes or just in-house servers. So they were servers that were literally managed by people going and putting cords in, installing fan blades to make sure that the machine stayed cool. Like it was a whole job. And when the cloud came along, they were like, oh my God, I'm going to be replaced because we don't need people to do that anymore because it's all going to be in the cloud, which if you think about it, like on the surface is true. And the cloud is just a really big data center somewhere else. The same skills are required at that really big data center. And so I happened to sit next to this team at a prior job, and they would talk all the time about how the cloud was horrible because, of course, their jobs are going to be replaced by it, and they were all worried about it. And at the time, Amazon Web Service, AWS, which is what you commonly hear, did not exist yet. And had they just gone to AWS and say, I've managed our physical machines here for the last X number of years, they could have gotten in at the ground level of AWS and they would have made a ton of money. And so I think about that as like, yes, their job was eliminated, if you think about it. And their skills were just needed somewhere else. They just needed to think about outside the box for like 2 minutes. And I think the same thing with AI. Like, yes, some of the places that you write code will be replaced by AI. And some of the places that we need you haven't existed before.
So what are some of those human traits, some of the things that you could carry with you in that job that might be shifting because of AI's impact?
I think part of it, well, there's a few things, and part of it is just your mindset about it.
Yes.
Like fear about change in the industry doesn't get you very far. You can't really, that's not in your sphere of influence. But what is in your sphere of influence is how that change happens. And so the only way to do that is to be a part of it. So getting involved from the ground level and saying like, this is how I think we could use AI at my workplace. The train is kind of coming, whether you like it or not. So it's just like getting yourself over that initial fear hump, I think is sort of the human only thing we can do. And then the other part is AI is very good at discrete tasks right now. If you say, build me an app that fetches ingredients for a recipe that I have given you, it's going to give you those ingredients. But what it hasn't done yet, and maybe someday it will, is write an entire cookbook knowing exactly the things I like, creating new recipes that no one has done before, and proliferating on like what you could do with that, making a brand out of that, making a show out of that, making a podcast out of that. Like all of that creative has to be done by people now. And I'm not suggesting it won't be done by AI in the future, but like right now you need a human to be like, oh, let's connect the dots between this cookbook and this brand.
Okay, so that could be your next TED Talk. And then the second TED Talk that I got out of this is you could really talk about fixed and growth mindset and why that's important in the job. Okay, Jen, another topic that I need you to educate me on, and this is when I really wish we had a margarita and tacos. MCP. I've heard of it, but I need you to break it down for me.
So when I have questions like this from my engineers, I usually say, explain it to me like I'm 5. So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, which is something that we have, made nerdy on purpose. But it basically takes external information and ties it with what the task at hand is, the AI is doing. So in real life, this example could be, I am doing a research project about all of the female engineers in the world. And I connect my AI tool with Wikipedia. That is where the AI tool is going to take all of its context from. So it's going to read Wikipedia and understand and then give me that output. So MCP is basically a connection of an external source to an AI tool.
I think that's kind of scary because then people can choose how you're getting your information and where it's coming from.
Yes, that's totally true. Which is why it's so important that we have people involved and who understand what's going on in the AI world. It absolutely is true. And one of the things that we talk about often is having like traceability or understanding where the AI tool is getting its information. So if I'm using Claude to ask it a few questions, sometimes I will say, okay, great, where did you get that information? But it usually will tell you the website it's pulling from.
So as a CX leader, what are the things that I should care about and should be top of mind when I hear MCP?
So the things I get really excited about are the ways that we use data within our organization to make our AI tool better. So think about as a CX leader, like I think about the example of just a frontline customer service person and using an AI chatbot to ask questions of like the policies that we have. Now, you want to connect that chatbot with all of our internal policy documents. You might want to connect that chatbot with like your customer database so that you could say, oh, this is Jen Peck, and she's been at this store, 20 times in the last 2 weeks. And it's always on a Friday, by the way. It can give you data that you already have in-house so that you can serve that person better.
Okay, so what's the biggest risk when you plug AI into real internal context?
Not everything is up to date all the time. Like internal context is only as good as the data that's put in.
Yeah.
I often say crap in, crap out, right? Like you put junk data in, like you're in a hurry, you're working with a customer and you just type like half of what you need. And then that is going to be accessed by your AI tool. So really the biggest risk is just like out of date or irrelevant information, or like that something that could potentially be offensive to somebody. Like what if it said, I was married and then I got a divorce and you were asking me something that was related to that? I don't know. Like there's a lot of ways that you worry about that. You're like, so just making sure that you're double checking that data.
Okay. Measuring AI impact. Most metrics are kind of fake. Tell me more.
One of the things I'm responsible for is measuring developer efficiency because I own the tool set. Companies love to talk about how efficient they are because Wall Street reacts to that. So if they're a public company, they're going to talk a lot about how they're using AI and how X% of their code is written by AI. I've seen companies say like 50% of our code is written by AI. When I have dug into like what tooling actually exists to give you a good metric, there's just not a lot. It's a new industry. We haven't figured out how to measure it. We haven't really perfected like what matters. Does it matter that somebody is using AI all day if all they're doing is creating unicorn GIFs? Probably not.
No.
But we measure use of AI. So does that count? So those are the kinds of things that we've talked about is like what actually matters.
So in CX, there's a 4-part measurement lens, if you will. Could you break those down for us so we understand what that means and why it's important?
There's probably 4 measurements that matter, and you can create some sort of matrix about it if you wanted to, but individually they all mean something. And so the first one I think about is like your quality. So like I was saying before, if you're creating a ton of AI code and then your website's down all the time, like who cares? And so taking that into account, like the number of incidents you have, the number of like outages you have, that all matters. So I think that's the first pillar. The second is how humans feel about it. Like your engineers are people, and people make better decisions when they're happy. So did I feel more efficient by using this tool? Does matter to the quality of the output.
How do you have a conversation post-project during the how are you measuring that?
Yeah, a lot of companies do it differently. And the one thing that we're doing is we've actually implemented a little bot that pops up every random amount of code that you produce and said, did you feel more productive using this AI tool? And you just have a kind of like an airport bathroom, like how clean was the airport bathroom? It's that. It's like you do a smiley face or not smiley face. And it's just a quick way to get a pulse of like, was this actually helpful? Or was it interrupting your workflow?
We can go on to the third, but I just want to say that I think that a lot of companies miss that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other people. I love that you're doing that. Thank you.
So the third is like your objective output. Like, what did you actually accomplish? Did you, create something new that, reduced the amount of time it took for you to get a process through the system? Did you fix a bug, which is sort of what we call something that is like going wrong on the website? Like, how much did you produce? So that might be something like lines of code measured or bugs closed out, something like that. So that's just like a number. And that doesn't need to be a good or bad thing. That can just be a number, and it's sort of irrelevant unless you compare it with other things.
And then the last one you highlighted for me was business impact. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So that's again talking about if you shipped a bunch of lines of code, but it didn't do anything, who cares? So this is like, did you actually ship something that changed something for a customer? So an example you might use is like, did you create, say you're creating like an AI chatbot for a customer service team, or did you meaningfully reduce return rate? Something like that, where it says like, we can actually see in a business metric that you did something, not just you shipped a GIF of a unicorn.
Right. And I think that often, or what I found where as a CX leader, where we get in trouble is we just measure deflection.
I think people forget in this world of like technology that like human sentiment does really matter. Code itself is just a bunch of tiny decisions made by people who have a real mood, who have a real life. If I'm in a not good mood, I might take a shortcut. And so like that all matters. Like human sentiment matters more than we think, especially when it comes to technology, because those decisions are made by people.
So what are the worst metrics that you've seen leaders rely on for AI?
I think like lines of code is the one that really annoys me. It's like, I just don't care. And having more lines of code might not be good. Like if you're trying to do something really simple, you want to describe it and do it in the least amount of code as possible. So lines of code seems like the silliest one. I also would say like percentage of code written by AI to me feels I think it's hard to prove really. And it's also just, I don't know, unimportant. Maybe you don't want AI in a particular task, but you do want it in another task.
How do you know when the percentage should be higher over the other? Or is that more of the human work that...
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the human work. We talk about AI like making things easier for people that are kind of annoying to do. Yeah, in one place you might say like, oh, AI would be really helpful because I have 84 things that are broken, but they're all the same. It can actually solve all of those in one. And that's a place where you'd want maybe all AI, but like in a place where you're making some like very subjective decisions for an experiment, like maybe not a place where you'd use AI.
So if you had to pick a measurement framework that's honest, what would it be?
I would pick, and we have in my real job, I have picked metrics that have all related back to the kind of 4 pillars that we talked about. So the quality, the human sentiment, your output, and then your business impact. I also have looked at success rate of what we call basically an accepted commit. So an AI tool will give you a suggestion. And if you say, yeah, I like that suggestion, you've said like, I accept your commit. And this is going to go into my code now. If you see an AI tool where it's giving 1,000 suggestions a day and only 2 are accepted, that's a pretty good indication of it not being a great tool. So I look at things like that where I'm trying to make decisions about like what's best for engineers using those metrics.
Yeah, that's great. Good point. I loved it when we met. You said like, look, like it's AI has really helped our team solve all the bugs, like the 84 bugs. I'd rather have it help me with that so I could do the really big stuff.
Yeah.
The thinking out loud and figuring it out. Yeah. And the creating. Yeah. I love that. So what's the equivalent of stability and flow state?
I mean, for the stability side, it's like you have all the tools you need and they're always working, which as we know, it isn't reality. And I want to say that is true. Like the more complex technology becomes, the harder it is to stay stable. My partner said the other day, like, oh, how hard is it to keep a website up? And I was like, very hard.
Very hard. Trust me.
It was a lot easier in 2003 than it is today. And so I think that just recognizing that as we improve, complexity improves and increases rather. And so does our challenge of keeping things stable. So that is real. But I would say like you have all the tools at your fingertips, they're working, and you have a way to give feedback if it doesn't. And then really like the flow state is like, where to go, when to go there, and you know that you're going to get a reliable answer. So you're not like questioning if you use a certain tool that it's going to give you a bad answer, and then you're going to be embarrassed in front of your customer.
So I find that I put a lot of pressure on myself to stay current without burning out.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I actually have found the best conversations are with VOX, meeting new people that have way more knowledge beyond me and experience. And I love it when we're in different verticals too, because we all kind of have the same issue. It's just, together, I believe we're better. But, as high performers, which I know that both of us are, that's a big pressure that I think we put on ourselves. How are you keeping relatable about that with your team and other leaders?
I find that kind of like what you just said is really true. It's like it's staying connected to people and people who know something different than you that really inspire me. I will say like a lot of my research just comes from reading people's LinkedIn posts. Yeah, like seeing how people are using AI in ways I never would have thought of. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. I think part of staying relevant is just like interacting with people online, obviously in person. I'm a big nerd and I love to read. And by the time something is published about AI, it's kind of old. So it is one of those things that you kind of have to do online in real time with people. And you have to use it yourself, which is why I'm like encouraging people to go use it. It's to know how it operates will help you sort of face the world. And I think to know how it operates helps you, miss some of the pitfalls that come with it. Like there are people who've over relied on it and have come to believe that they've like solved some, math equation that no one has heard of because the AI sort of tricked them into it. So there are real pitfalls. Like you have to be in touch.
Well, everyone, you need to follow Jen because she does post great things on LinkedIn. I belong to a women's organization and I had read a great Substack post. I think she's the chief digital officer at Elf, and her post was about she didn't have very many likes, which I was surprised because it really was talking about like, hey, as executives, as the team that's making all these decisions, this is your playbook to make sure that this launches. And I think we need more of that.
I mean, honestly, it's all from LinkedIn, and I click a bunch of links from LinkedIn and follow those down a rabbit hole. And I love reading Substacks and posts from engineers themselves. I love reading those. Even if I don't understand everything, that's okay. You'll always take something away.
Do you believe that globally, if you think globally, do you think there is an area of the world that is leading AI better than others?
That's such a good question. I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer to that. I'm sure that there are other places that are being more, maybe dogmatic is the wrong word to use, but like more dedicated to use it at every twist and turn. And when you do that, it does improve. So I'm sure there are places that are more like culturally about that. But then there are also like impacts to the economy when you do that. So I think, it's very culturally, it depends on the culture of the country. So I don't know that there's a better or worse. It's like it's like a trade-off.
I love that. Okay. I love it because I think it just speaks to, we don't have all the answers. We're all still learning, and we all need to come together and share and learn.
Yeah, absolutely. That. Yeah.
So my favorite words you've said today are vibe coding. So I just want you to know that has now entered my vocabulary bank, and I will be using that all the time. And then we talked about, how expensive all of this is. And Jen, I wanted to tell the audience, you are very expensive. So I have some fun questions to ask. I always do this at the end of my podcast with my guests. It's rapid fire.
Okay.
And I just want everyone to know I've used ChatGPT for this. So this is AI.
Okay.
Are you ready, my friend?
I'm so ready.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
First job ever?
What was it? I worked at a florist shop and I got fired.
Oh, well, hey, that's good. That's good. We all got to do that once, right?
Yeah.
Hey, one word your friends would use to describe you.
Bold.
I love that.
Yeah.
Go-to comfort food.
Anything with cheese. I'm from Wisconsin. It's not my fault. It's like literally part of the culture.
It's not my fault. I love it.
It's part of the culture.
Book, podcast, or TV?
Book.
Biggest pet peeve?
When people are not aware of the noise they make in public or listen to like their phone on speakerphone or music on speakerphone. I'm very sensitive to noise. And so I like bought myself little headphones to drown it out.
Dream vacation spot?
Anywhere in Europe that's like historical and I can go be a nerd and learn about history.
Oh my gosh. You and my husband loves that. Hidden talent?
I am an internationally ranked kettlebell lifter.
That's cool. Okay.
I mean, but I don't know that it's hidden talent. I don't really have one.
That's really cool.
I just put on my talents right out in the open. So they're not.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Most used emoji?
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Okay.
Yeah.
Something you always have with you? I don't carry a bag, but if I did, I would probably say chapstick. But what's yours?
Honestly, it's just my phone, which is a sad state of the world. But yeah.
Best advice you've ever received?
I think probably something I said here, which is if the only reason you don't want to do something is you're afraid, that means you need to do it. That was not from me.
Okay, this is going back to our roots and what bonded us together. Worst fashion phase?
Ooh, probably like the going out top fashion phase that I had in college, and everything had glitter on it for some reason. Yeah. And it wasn't glitter, actually. It was sequins specifically.
Good.
In Wisconsin.
Great. Oh, nice. I bet you were razzle dazzle.
I was razzle dazzled through the snow.
Oh, I have one more because I know you're good at card games. You're good at cards, right?
Yes.
What's your favorite card game?
Spades.
Mine too. And euchre. We're from the Midwest. That's what happens.
Yeah, I know, right? Oh my! And I even said it. I know.
It happens. Well, this concludes our podcast with Vox Wins. And Jen, I really appreciate you saying yes. And I had a great time. So on behalf of our network and our team, thank you. And I hope that we get to see you again.